All right, I'll just jump right into it. My name's Jake, and I never thought I'd be the guy writing a story like this, but here we are. So I was with my wife, Emily, for about 4 years. Things weren't perfect, but they were good enough. At least I thought they were. We were planning our wedding, and honestly, I was pretty damn excited. She always seemed a little distant lately, but I chalked it up to wedding stress. She was one of those women who could be bitchy and manipulative when she didn't get her way, but I loved her, and I was trying to ignore some of the red flags. We had a pretty set routine. I worked long hours, she was busy with her own stuff, and the weekends were mostly about wedding planning or hanging out with friends. The last week before the wedding, everything was supposed to be smooth sailing. I was at the rehearsal dinner, surrounded by family, friends, and the usual buzz of excitement. Emily was being her usual bitchy self, snapping at people, acting like she was queen of the damn world. Honestly, I didn't think much of it because she could turn on. The Ice Queen act at the drop of a hat. Meanwhile, her best man Mike was there, always buzzing around her like a puppy. I trusted Mike, or at least I thought I did. He's been my best friend since high school, and I always thought that was solid. But that night something felt off. Emily kept flirting with him, leaning in a little too close, giggling at his stupid jokes, touching his arm more than she should. And I just shrugged it off, wetting nerves, I told myself. Maybe she was just excited, or maybe she was just being Emily, bitchy, flirtatious, and kind of a pain in the ass. I went to my hotel room that night, tired but happy, thinking about the next day. I was supposed to get married to the woman I loved, or so I thought. And as I was about to fall asleep, I got this weird feeling. My phone buzzed. I looked at it, expecting a good night message from Emily, but instead I saw a message pop up from Mike. Just a quick text. "See you tomorrow, man. Can't wait to see you walk down that aisle." Normal, right? But then I noticed something strange, an image attached. It was a photo. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Emily lying tangled in bed with Mike. They weren't just cuddling or kissing, they were doing more. The bed was a mess, sheets pulled off, and their clothes were crumpled on the floor. I stared at that image for a long moment, my stomach twisting into knots. I didn't even know what to think at first. My mind went blank, and then rage hit me like a freight train. How could she do this? How could she cheat on me the night before our wedding with my best man of all people? It was like a punch to the gut, only worse because I'd been blind to it all along. I mean, I always knew Emily was bitchy, but I never thought she'd be this cruel, this deceptive. And Mike, my supposed best friend, how could he do this? How could he betray me like that? It was all too much. The betrayal was so raw, so real, I could feel it ripping through me. I stayed awake all night, staring at that damn photo, trying to process what I'd seen. My mind kept racing, draining all the hope I had left. I kept thinking about all the times she lied, the little things she'd brushed off, the moments I ignored because I loved her. And now everything was shattered. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure what I'd say or even if I could. All I knew was that my life was about to change forever. The next morning I was a mess. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, and I couldn't stop staring at that damn picture. My mind was spinning with questions I didn't have answers to. How long had this been going on? Did she mean to get caught? Was she planning to hide it all along? The worst part was the feeling of betrayal, by her and somehow by Mike too. I told myself I'd confront her, but when I got to our hotel room, I didn't even know where to start. She was already awake when I walked in. Emily looked at me with that bitchy smirk she always had, like she knew she was pulling some kind of power move. I saw the flicker of guilt in her eyes, but she quickly masked it with her usual sharp attitude. "Oh, you're awake. Didn't expect you to get up so early. Big day, huh?" she said, voice dripping with sarcasm. I clenched my fists, trying to keep calm, but inside I was boiling. Before I could say anything, she turned on her heel and headed to the bathroom, acting like I wasn't even there. That pissed me off even more. I didn't want to look weak or like I was about to cry, but my hands trembled. I grabbed my phone, looked at the photos again, and finally summoned the courage to confront her. I called her name, voice hoarse but steady. "Emily, we need to talk," I said. She came out of the bathroom, eyes narrowing. "About what?" she snapped, crossing her arms. I took a deep breath, trying to stay logical. "You know exactly what, Emily. I saw the photos. I saw you in bed with Mike. How could you do that? Why?" She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, come on, Jake, you're overreacting. That's just a stupid photo. You're reading too much into it." She paused, then added, "It's not what you think. That was just sex. It doesn't mean anything. You're making a big deal out of nothing." I felt my blood boil. "Nothing, nothing. Are you kidding me? That's my best man, Emily, my best fucking friend, and you're telling me it's just sex? How long has this been going on? Do you even care how much you've hurt me?" She laughed sharply, that bitchy edge in her voice. "Look, Jake, I don't owe you explanations. You're just jealous because I'm finally getting what I want. You're so damn boring. I needed excitement, and Mike, well, he's fun. Better than you anyway." Her words hit me like a slap, cold and mean. I was stunned. How could she be so callous? How could she lie so effortlessly? That's when I saw the real her, the bitchy, manipulative woman who thought she could get away with anything. I wanted to scream, wanted to shake her, but I knew that wouldn't help. Instead, I told her to leave the room for a minute. I needed to think. I needed to breathe. But inside, I knew I wasn't going to let this go. Not without a fight. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my hands trembling. I couldn't believe. I'd trusted her. I'd given her everything, the love, the stability, and now I was just a fool. How could she lie so easily? How could she pretend she was innocent? And Mike, my best man, how could he do this to me? I kept thinking about the wedding, the vows we were supposed to say today, the life I imagined with her. All gone, just like that. I was furious, but underneath it all, I felt a deep, sinking sadness. The kind that eats you from the inside out. I thought about all those times she was bitchy, all the moments I ignored because I loved her. Turns out I was just blind. I had been blind all along. And now I had to decide what to do next. Confront her, walk away. I didn't know, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same after this. I stayed in that hotel room for what felt like forever, trying to piece everything together. My mind kept circling back to that photo, that moment of betrayal that changed everything. I knew I couldn't just brush this off, pretend it didn't happen. But I also knew I couldn't just explode right then and there. I needed a plan, a way to handle this that would hurt her as much as she'd hurt me, but also give me some sense of control. After what felt like hours of sitting in silence, I finally opened my phone again. I couldn't stop thinking about the fact that Emily had lied from the start. I remembered how she always acted like I was the problem, moody, jealous, insecure. But in reality, she was the one sneaking around, lying, cheating. All those times she snapped at me or accused me of things, she was the one hiding her secrets. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I wanted to do it on my terms. I waited until she returned to the room, which she did about an hour later, her face set in that bitchy grin again. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "We need to talk. No more lies, just the truth. I want to know everything. When did this start? How long have you been messing around with Mike?" She scoffed again, acting like she was so above it all. "Oh, please, Jake, you're overthinking everything. That's just a one-time thing. It meant nothing. You're just upset because you're nervous about the wedding. Relax, we're fine." I shook my head, feeling the weight of betrayal crushing down on me. "No, Emily, you're not fine. I saw the pictures. I know how long this has been going on. Don't lie to me now. Just tell me the truth." Her eyes flashed with anger. "You want the truth? Fine. Yes, I slept with Mike. It happened last night, but it meant nothing. Just sex, you know. And honestly, I don't see what the big deal is. You act like I cheated on you for years or something. It's just sex. It doesn't mean I don't love you." That hit a nerve. I wanted to scream, to tell her she was full of shit, but I held back. Instead, I looked at her, feeling a strange mixture of rage and heartbreak. How could she be so cold? How could she lie so effortlessly? I realized that in her mind, she was still trying to justify everything, make herself feel better while I was crumbling inside. I told her I needed some space, that I wasn't going to make any decisions right then. She sneered, said something about how I was overreacting and that I was just insecure. But I didn't care what she thought anymore. My stomach twisted. Part of me wanted to lash out, to break everything in sight. The other part just wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. The truth was, I was drowning in a storm of emotions: shock, anger, sadness, betrayal. I'd always thought that love could conquer anything, but now I realized she was capable of destroying it all with a single night. I spent the rest of the day trying to keep it together, pretending everything was okay when inside I was falling apart. That's when I started planning my next move. Because if she thought she could lie her way out of this and pretend everything was normal, she had another thing coming. I wasn't going to let her get away with it that easily. By late afternoon, I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The anger had started to bubble up into something more calculated, cold, precise, determined. I realized that if I was going to do something about this, I had to be smart. I had to make her feel the pain. She'd inflicted on me, but I also had to be strategic. I couldn't just fly off the handle and blow everything up without thinking it through. I went through my phone, digging through messages, photos, everything I could find that might give me leverage. I remembered that she had been acting weird for a few weeks, more distant, more bitchy, snapping at me over small things. So I started retracing her steps, thinking maybe there were signs I missed. But honestly, I wasn't surprised anymore. She'd been hiding her true self all along. Then I remembered she'd told me she was meeting her mom yesterday afternoon, but her phone had been silent, and her location on my tracker showed she'd been somewhere else, somewhere near the hotel. I pulled up the GPS history on her phone just to confirm, and yeah, it tracked her sneaking out around the same time she was supposed to be with her mom. That was the moment I decided I had enough. I needed proof. Hard proof. I went to the hotel lobby, pretending to be casual, and then I followed her out when she left the hotel in her car. She didn't see me yet. First, which was good. I stayed a few steps behind her, waiting for her to make her move. I followed her to this sketchy little bar downtown, one I'd never even heard of. She went inside and I parked nearby, watching her through the window. She was meeting someone, not her mom. Some guy I didn't recognize. She was laughing, flirting. It was clear she was cheating on me again, and I felt my stomach turn cold all over again. I knew this was enough. I had the proof I needed. But I also knew I had to be careful. I went back to the hotel, went to my room, and started drafting a message. It wasn't about revenge in the moment, it was about making her understand she couldn't keep lying. I texted her, "I know everything, I followed you, you're done, I want a divorce." Short, cold, to the point. No emotion, just facts. I knew she'd be furious, but I didn't care. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt all day: total betrayal. Later, she stormed into the room, furious, screaming, denying everything. She called me names, accused me of stalking her, said I was crazy. Insecure, jealous, but I just looked at her, calm on the outside but boiling inside. I told her I had the evidence and I was done playing her games, that I was filing for divorce and that she should prepare for the fallout. She yelled some more, but I shut her out. I knew I was making the right move, even if it hurt like hell. That night, I sat in the hotel room alone, feeling numb. My mind kept racing over everything that had happened. I'd lost my wife, yes, but I also lost the trust I once had in her. And Mike, my supposed best friend. I didn't even want to think about him anymore. All I cared about now was figuring out how to get through the aftermath, how to pick up the pieces of a life I never thought I'd have to rebuild. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about finally facing the truth, about her, about him, about myself. The days that followed were a blur of legal stuff, emotional chaos, and trying to piece together what was left of my dignity. I moved out of the hotel, packed up my things, and filed for divorce. Honestly, I didn't care about the legal details that much. I just wanted to be done with her. That bitch had torn my life apart in one night, and I was left standing in the rubble trying to figure out how to breathe again. During the process, I realized something. I'd been so blind, so caught up in what I thought we had, that I ignored all the signs. The bitchiness, the lying, the little secrets. She'd been hiding things for months. I kept replaying every argument, every weird moment, trying to see if I missed the signals. Turns out I did, because I was too damn in love to notice that she was just using me. Using my trust, my love, my life for her own amusement or whatever sick game she was playing. But I didn't dwell on that for long. I knew I had to focus on moving forward. I started spending more time with my friends, hitting the gym and working on myself. The hardest part was accepting that I'd been betrayed so thoroughly, especially by Mike, the guy I'd always thought was my brother. That realization hurt worse than the divorce. Papers. How could someone I trusted so much turn around and do something so disgusting? It was a brutal lesson in who really had my back and who didn't. I also forced myself to confront the anger I'd been suppressing. I wanted to lash out, make her feel some of what I felt, but I knew that wouldn't heal anything. Instead, I channeled that rage into focusing on rebuilding my life. I disconnected from her social media, blocked her number, and made it clear to everyone around me that I didn't want any contact. I needed space to heal, to figure out who I was without her dragging me down. Looking back, I think what really hit me hardest was the betrayal of trust, not just her cheating, but the way she lied, manipulated, and dismissed my feelings. She kept insisting it was just sex, just a mistake, like it was nothing. But I saw it for what it was, a deep, calculated betrayal. I realized I deserved more than a bitchy wife who played games and a friend who was willing to throw away years of friendship for a night of sex. So I made a promise to myself. Never. Again would I ignore the red flags. Never again would I let someone treat me like that and pretend it was okay. I learned the hard way that love isn't enough when someone is willing to betray you so completely. No matter how much you try to hold on, some wounds cut too deep to heal on their own. And sometimes, walking away is the only way to save what's left of your sanity and dignity. Now, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life piece by piece. It's not easy. I still have days where I feel the ache of betrayal, where I miss what I thought we had. But I know that I'm better off without her. I've learned to trust myself again, to recognize the signs I ignored before. And honestly, I just hope anyone else out there going through something similar can learn from my mistake. Never ignore the red flags. And when someone betrays you so thoroughly, sometimes the only way to heal is to walk away and never look back. Looking back now, I realize that the biggest lesson I've learned from this whole nightmare is about how fragile trust really is, and how quickly it can be shattered when someone you love turns out to be someone you never really knew. I always thought I knew Emily, thought I loved her enough to see past her bitchy attitude and manipulative ways. Turns out, I was just blinded by my own hopes and the idea of what we could have been. Her betrayal did something else, though. It forced me to grow some serious thick skin. I used to be the guy who believed in fairy tales, who thought love could conquer everything. But after experiencing something so raw and brutal, I see the world a little differently now. I see people for who they really are, not for what I wish they were. I learned that sometimes love isn't enough to keep people honest. Sometimes you just have to walk away to save yourself. The pain of what I went through still lingers, of course. It's not like I woke up one day and suddenly felt better. Some nights are still tough, and I catch myself thinking about what could have been or what I lost. But I also know that if I stayed any longer, I'd only end up more broken. I had to make the decision. To walk away, to cut out the poison and start fresh. That's what I did. And honestly, I'm glad I did. Because now I'm focusing on myself, on what makes me happy. I've started to rebuild my confidence, reconnect with friends, and find new hobbies. I don't hold any resentment, well, maybe a little, but mostly I feel relief. Relief that I finally faced the truth, that I didn't let her lies define me, that I took back control of my life and my happiness. To anyone reading this and going through something similar, my advice is simple. Don't ignore the red flags. Don't try to justify the betrayal, no matter how much you love someone. And most importantly, don't be afraid to walk away. Because if someone is willing to hurt you that deeply, they don't deserve your love, your trust, or your time. You're better off without the chaos and the lies. In the end, I learned that real strength isn't just about holding everything together. It's about knowing when to let go. I've come out of this battered but wiser. And even though it hurts, I know now that I deserve someone who will treat me with honesty and respect. No more lies, no more betrayal, just the hope that someday I'll find someone worthy of my trust again.